soy crops that are destroying the Amazon rainforest, or we're talking about the like exploitation of cattle, of chickens. All of this is a problem, you know. And so at the time, I would eat anything I could take out of the trash. But eventually, I had to ask the question to myself: would I be able to live if I only ate vegan food from the trash? And I discovered that the answer was yes. I tried that experiment on this. It was actually the third tour that Catharsis did in Europe. I was like, should I become vegan? I'll try it. I'll see how it goes. And I've been vegan since then for 24 years. For me, the nice thing about veganism is that if you're in the habit of eating meat, you kind of have to be desensitized to the lives of the animals that you're eating. You know, you see an animal and you think of it as food, not as another creature suffering under capitalism like you, only even worse, right? But after I stopped eating meat, then I could go into a hamburger shop and see it as a place where, like, the end result of like terrible processes like are arriving, and see a hamburger like on a. I mean, I used to work in food service. I used to flip hamburgers for $4.50 an hour, you know. And I could see the hamburger as another creature, and you know that cow was another creature like me in an exploitive, destructive system, only so much worse off than I am. You know, it was like hard to imagine. And being vegan, it's a little bit easier to open one's heart to feeling that tragedy, because otherwise we have to be constantly suppressing our emotions, right? Just to be able to survive in this fucked up world. And I'm not saying everybody has to be vegan. What I'm saying is that we should find practices that make it possible for us to feel what is going on around us in the world and to be able to take action that is appropriate to that.
How do you think people can find more ways for this?
I mean, if you use the metaphor that I'm describing with veganism, we have to be able to experience something other than capitalist exploitation, or else we won't know that anything else is possible, right? And, you know, something other than patriarchal violence, something other than hierarchy. And, you know, the hardcore scene is as good a place as any to try to do those experiments, to be like, well, what if things were different? Let's create a space in which they're different so we know how much different our lives could be. And then we have a point of departure to organize together to make things different, right?
I think it's also just about generalized empathy. We live in a society that teaches us to really dehumanize ourselves and each other's, both as workers and just as people living in the community. So as much as we are able to be like more fully present in ourselves and extend that empathy out towards others, then, you know, you're like breaking down the dehumanizing forces that, you know, because to live in this kind of world that we live in, it takes a lot of disassociation. You have to kind of be separate from yourself and from each other to like thrive in this nasty world. So I think for me personally, I think anything that's gonna build empathy and also bring you back into your own like humanness and help you see the humanity in other people and respect of other beings.
Okay, let's go back to capitalism. Do you think there will be a day somewhere in the future that capitalism will be completely over?
Yes, the question is, will there be any people after this day? Right? You know, I mean, capitalism has already produced two different ways that humanity could go extinct, like nuclear warfare and climate change, right? Am I forgetting anything? Those are the big ones, right? And that's only in, you know, 200 years, right? 200, 300 years. How many more ways for us to all go extinct will we let our society produce before we act to interrupt it? So, and the question really is like, I mean, do I think that in my lifetime we can abolish all forms of property, all forms of competition, all forms of exploitation in all of the world? You know, I'm halfway through my life now. I'm 49 years old, right? So we might not be finished by the time that I'm dead. But do I think that we can participate in the struggle to open up spaces in which something else happens? absolutely. Are the richest moments of my life the moments when we have succeeded in opening a space of freedom and resistance? Yes. So it's absolutely worth it, whether we see the end of the fight or not.
And capitalism for me isn't just about like the financial exchange and institution, it's also about the mindset. And I feel like if we want to at any time, and I think maybe some people saw little hints of this during COVID, when people were actually starting to meet their neighbors and kind of exchange in a different way. Capitalism isn't just about the money, it's also, yeah, as I said, the mindset, and I think that that's absolutely possible, is to work towards like mental liberation against just the capitalist mind frame that keeps us separate and holding each other down.
So how is it that you personally keep your head sane in a world that can feel very insane every single day?
Big question.
I don't. I mean, let's kick it. Go ahead. Let's kick it. I mean, I guess the things that keep me sanity are my community. I have a really incredible community, friendships, treating each other like we aren't disposable, you know, like making sure that we are really taking care of each other. I try to take care of the people that I love in my life. They try to take care of me too. And I think, you know, I do think about dying quite often. And actually I think it's like, it's healthy to do that, to think of a world in which we don't exist. And if anything, like that sort of mental framework helps me show up more and be more present, because I understand that my time on this earth is really limited. And so are the people that I love. So we have to like be really good to each other while we have each other, you know? That's how I deal with it.
Yeah, it's true that if I were not getting to do this with like my dear friends, I would have some serious emotional problems. And I know this because I do often have serious emotional problems. You know, I'm more mentally healthy now than I ever have been. And it's because of being able to build a foundation, relationships where things function differently, you know. But you know, for example, when Trump was elected, if I had not been part of a collective that was able to respond immediately, I would have been going crazy. I would have been eating myself alive, you know. And instead, I was connected to other people. We have like power, we have agency together, and we can say, all right, what are the threats? How do we act concretely to meet those challenges? You know, so that that energy is not turned against us, but is turned against our enemies.
Another question. Lots of people here are also activists. It's very inspiring to hear you talk, also for me. What was your point in life that you were like, oh, this is not working, I want to do more, and really becoming an activist and speaking out and looking for solutions that are beyond the system that we live in today?
I don't know when the first moment was. I mean, I don't even know if I think of myself as an activist. I mean,
You are.
I'm just like, for me, I don't want there to be a division between activists and people who aren't activists, right? I want all of us, however we think of ourselves, to be participating in an intentional process of trying to meet our needs together and maybe, if necessary, change the world, right? But the people who have participated in this process with me have often been people who don't think of themselves as activists, you know? And I want to make a space for everyone, not like, because activism, if you define it as a separate category, it's like it would usually be a hobby, right? Whereas like trying to figure out how to survive in this world is a full-time activity for everyone, right? And let's make it a collective activity.
I don't have much to say. I'm with you on that. I also don't view myself as an activist. I think like if you grow up in some sort of like other category, like I grew up really poor, I'm from the South, like things like that really like you don't really become an activist. You're born knowing that the world is just inherently fucked up, and so yeah, it doesn't really feel like a choice. It's just like a knowing, and yeah. There's no time. There wasn't like a light switch. I wish I had this like beautiful story of, you know, like one day I woke up and was like, oh fuck, I gotta do something about that. But it's not like that at all. No, it's just things are terrible on a daily basis, and you try to do the best that you can to take care of each other and yeah, fight for the world that we actually want to live in. Because this is not it.
Yeah, I mean, you might be. You're like 6 years old and you're already in the fight.
Totally.
Whatever's going on in your family, whatever's going on in your street, you're already in it.
So how do you connect your fight for a better world with your music?
I mean, the sounds we hear are part of the world we're in, you know? And it's just that, I guess.
Tabling also.
Yeah, talk about
it. Feels really important. Like one of the things that I love about traveling with Catharsis is that, you know, as we've mentioned before, that it's not just the music. I've been traveling, doing tabling, free zines, posters, anarchist literature for 20 years now, and that feels so important, like the connections that we make with people all over the world and in small towns where maybe someone doesn't have an outlet, but they were able to get to the punk show, and now there's someone with a free zine, and like maybe that zine they read and it actually changes their life, or they're able to have a cool conversation with a stranger. Those little moments, those are like beautiful moments of rupture where we're able to expose each other to things that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. And for me personally, that's a part of putting the politic in the music and carrying it forward, and like what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, so punk plays a role where it can help us to build networks where we can connect people who would otherwise be alone to other ways of living or other relationships, right? But the music itself plays a role in that also, right? Like, I think that with music we can demonstrate other ways of experiencing, other ways of relating, like the way that our band plays together, the things that we bring to it, the fact that it's not just the music on the stage, but about the entire collective project. And what Roxy was saying earlier about empathy, like if one of the things that makes it possible for us to exist in this world as it is killing us without doing anything about that is the fact that we suppress our feelings, then in the music that we make, we could try to force ourselves, and maybe others, to feel something that would make it impossible to go on the way that things have been. You know, that would pull us out of this like mindset of acceptance and into a mindset of aspiration. You know?
I could go on for hours with you two. It's really, really amazing. I have a few more questions. Do you remember your first hardcore show? Who was playing? Who did you see? Or just your first time that you discovered hardcore? Could be a record too. Could be
Well,
a show.
Alexi, the drummer in our band, gave me a tape that had Minor Threat and Corrosion of Conformity on it. And I'd listened to the Clash and the Sex Pistols before that, but that tape was the first, like, punk, hardcore, you know. And I think with Alexi, I went to my first hardcore show, which was at the Teen Center in our tiny town. I believe it was Youthful Irregularities from Richmond, is that right? Some, you know, hardcore band that jumped around. Roxy, do you remember yours?
No, I really don't remember it. I just grew up that we had like a small all ages club, which I think all ages venues are so fucking important. But there was like a small all ages venue in the town that I grew up in, and you know, me and my friends played music, and not hardcore specifically, but kind of adjacently. One of the first shows I do remember going to, like one of my first big punk shows, was actually this ska band called Otis Ream that Alexi was also in. So sorry for that call out, but yeah. So not hardcore, but like not you know, related vaguely.
Alexi, that's the answer. Alexi, it's short.
Alexi is the answer for both of us.
Thank you, Alexi. For the people wondering, you brought your own drinking bottle. It's on stage. It looks very quite special.
Why am I drinking dirty river water? That's what you're asking, right?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen and everyone else, this is marshmallow root. It's supposed to help me keep screaming, even though every night I try to hurt myself as much as I possibly can. And later today we'll find out if it works.
Okay, we'll all be there. Thank you so much for your time. Give it up for Catharsis.
Thank you.
Ben je blij? Ben je blij? Are you happy?
Yes.